Hey guys, and welcome to my card review for the new cards that are coming out for Faeria during this week. We have 5 cards revealed so far. I'm going to be going through each card, giving my thoughts on them and potential strategies that could revolve around these new cards being added. Start things off, we have the Rebel Glider, a free Faeria 1 free with Flying, Dash 2 and Can't Harvest Faeria. Now, there's been a lot of interesting things being said about this card. It's too weak, what can it do? It doesn't have a great stat lines. It can't collect Faeria. This is probably one of the weaker cards that we've seen so far, but I think this deck card has a lot of potential in green. Now, the reason is, one of the things green can struggle with is mobility. And even though we do have a mobility card coming up in this review, before that was released, this card has the advantage of having Dash. Now, Dash came out in the patch last week, and we've already seen how great Sagami Warrior has become with this dash mechanic. But this card has Flying. So what are the potential uses of this card? And I say green is because the stat line isn't that great, so you're going to want to buff that stat line. So being able to use stuff like Elderwood Embrace, Tiki Caretakers to make this into a threatening creature will definitely be an advantage to the Rebel Glider. But his dash ability with the combination of Flying could allow you to summon him on the board and move onto an enemy tile to set him an aggressive land. So if you imagine you're on the right side of your well, you've built on the second tier of lands, so you're one tier up from your well spot. If you played him there where he would usually double collect, if your opponent has land there, you could slam an aggressive land next to their well. So that's the potential I see of the card. Maybe you guys have seen other ways this card can be used. Be sure to leave that in the comments. So next up, we're going to be talking about the Annoying Gnat. So the Annoying Gnat is an interesting card. It's Flying, Last Words, deal 2 damage to yourself, and summon this creature in a random space. It's a 2 Faeria, 1 Desert, 2/1. It's a very cheap creature. It's going to be able to stick to the board a little easier just because of its Last Word effects. Overall, its stat line is pretty weak. But this is going to have a lot of impact in sacrificial decks. So someone like Green Arrow Sack can sack this card, you take the 2 damage, you gain a buff from your Demon Wrangler, or your Deathwalker, or your Shaitan Assassin, or whatever, you activate that card, and then you gain a 2/1 back, and maybe you could sack it again, or use it to collect Faeria. There's a lot of different things you could do in order to get some value out of this card. Another card that could definitely benefit from this is Doone-Gate. Now, Doone-Gate's a legendary, which isn't that popular. It's quite hard to get going, and of course there's a lot of removal in the game anyway, so even if you do get your big 13/13, it could just be removed the turn after he's played. But this card could definitely help Doone-Gate get going. So I can see this card just being a good addition to sacrifice decks, but also maybe to Doone-Gate. So next up, we have the Dream Reaver, a new blue card. So this is the big daddy of blue cards right now. Beirut, you've got a contender now. Dream Reaver is a crazy card. Half the enemy god's life rounded up is its gift effect. It has a heavy lake cost at 6 lakes, 6 Faeria and a 6/10, so it's a good body, A 6/10 is going to be quite hard to remove. Same stats as a Walking Fortress, but the big thing of this card is obviously the lakes. Now, this could be a really good control card, a good way for a heavy control blue deck to finish off their opponent. But where I can see this card shining is in a Ninja Toad deck. Now, Modnick was chatting to me about this card once it got revealed, and he was saying that this has a lot of potential as an OTK deck with Ninja Toad. And Ninja Toad's already in an OTK deck, but now we have a different variation. So, yeah, you half your opponent's health, and then you half it again with your second Dream Reaver, and then you can finish them off with a Ninja Toad or 2. So that's the general strategy that Modnick's been thinking of, and it seems pretty convincing to me so far. On the other end of things, you do have 6 lakes you need to get to be able to play this card. So this will probably feature in a mono blue OTK deck, but also achieving 6 lakes gives you access to cards which you usually wouldn't play in blue, stuff like Aurora's Trick, for example. And with the growth of Green Arrow Sacrifice within the meta, Aurora's Trick becomes very handy. So this card has a lot of potential. It's going to be interesting to see what the deck builders do with this. Will it take an OTK direction? Will it take a control direction? We'll have to see. So next up we have the Feral Kodama, which is probably my favourite card of the 10 so far. So if you've been watching my stream and been watching this YouTube channel, you will know that I've always wanted to make green great again. I'm a big fan of green, not mainly the control aspect of green, but more the aggressive and mid-range variations of green. I like the idea of having these big bodies which are really hard to deal with. And Sagami Warrior answered one of my prayers for green. It gave a very solid early game creature, because that was what green was lacking for me. We only really had a Willow, Tiki Caretaker. That's about it, really. That's all really green had that was viable. But now we have a Sagami Warrior. But this card is icing on the cake so far. So a 6 Faeria, 4 Forest, 7/7 with Slam and Jump. Now this has the exact same stat line as Verdant Force. However, it does cost 2 Forests more. And it has a combination of 2 very powerful mechanics. Jump, which gives you tremendous mobility, but also Slam, which we've only seen on Cypher so far, which will allow it to destroy multiple creatures within a radius. So this makes this card ridiculously powerful, but not only that, it's a huge threat that your opponent's going to have to deal with, because if your opponent's playing a very swarm-based deck, say like Green Yellow Sack, maybe Events Blue, for example, that has a lot of Battletoads, this card could just decimate an entire board. Now, it's not 4 Forests. So some people have been saying, so why do you run Verdant Forest anymore? Well, 4 Forests is going to be pretty hard to get for some archetypes. Like, for example, in Green Rush, when I used to play Green Rush, I used to play Faeria Golems. Now, I didn't play Faeria Golems because it was a good aggressive card. I played Faeria Golems because it had a great stat line, 5/10. But it cost 5 Forests, so it meant that I had to develop 5 Forests through the course of my aggression. Feral Kodama is 1 Forest less and has the aggressive stat line that I've desired for Green Rush to have. Some people have said this card is a bit nuts. Well, it's yet to be seen. We'll see how some of the other new cards match up to this in power level, but also how some of the decks within the metagame handle it. So if Yellow Controlled very popular, there's going to be a lot of Last Nightmares, so you'll be able to save your Last Nightmares for this Kodama. But also there's Mirror Phantasms. There's lots of different ways you can actually answer this, so don't worry too much, guys. I'm really excited for this card. I'm really excited to get Green Rush going again. If you've been watching my videos recently, I hit God rank with an anti-aggro green mid-range deck. And so I've been really trying to make green work ever since the changes. So next up is the newest card that has been released, which is the Forbidden Library. Another blue card, but this time it's a structure. So this card is awesome. Not only is it a great structure, this is probably the most powerful structure in the game, but it also gives blue a lot more gas. So Forbidden Library is a 2 Faeria, 2 lake structure with 2 health, so its health total is very vulnerable to red, but other decks may struggle in dealing with this. Draw a card, gain 2 Faeria, and deal 2 damage to yourself. So it's basically a combination of Kaleem's Prayer and Soul Pact put together into a structure. Now what makes this card really powerful is sustainable Faeria, sustainable card draw. You do take damage to yourself, so that can add up against aggro decks, but in a slower metagame, or if you're playing an aggressive blue deck, this card could be absolutely insane. So Event Blues, built on a more aggressive path, could utilize this card so greatly. They'll be able to consistently put pressure on, consistently gain Faeria, and gain hand advantage. This card will get punished quite hard by red. Mid-range red will have a great time with this. New control reds that are coming out as well. But other decks which are a little slower and don't have access to damage-based removal like green may not be able to clear this straight away. And another thing about this card as well, it has its own variation of taunt, right? You're going to want to clear it as soon as possible, because the Faeria and card advantage your opponent's going to gain is going to become a problem the longer you leave this up. On the flip side though, this card could kill your opponent. So another strategy you could make with this card, very similar to that of the Shaitan Demon, is just ignoring it and playing defensively and allowing this library to kill your own opponent. So this card is fantastic. I'm interested to see what decks it finds its way into. I can see it being very great in aggressive event decks, for example. Maybe even Bargain Control, Red-Blue Bargain Control could use this card. Even like Free Wish decks could use this card. It could be very helpful, you know, gain Faeria, gain card draw. You're going to heal yourself up with Free Wishes anyway. So this card has tremendous potential, and I'm excited to see what it can do. So that's all the cards that have been released so far. I hope you guys are liking them. I am for certain, but we still have 5 more cards coming out. We haven't seen any yellow or red cards as of yet, so we'll have to see. Excuse me, no, we've seen the Gnat, but we haven't seen any red cards as of yet. So I'm excited to see what cards come out and how they impact the game, because this is going to make a whole new metagame for Faeria, a whole new way to experience this wonderful game. Thank you very much as usual, guys. Be sure to hit a like or subscribe if you do enjoy this channel and the content that I make. If you have any thoughts on these cards, how you can use them, how you can fit them into decks, some archetypes that you can invent from them, let me know in the comments. I'd be very excited to see what ideas you guys come up with, as well as, you know, how you want to utilize these cards in decks you already play. Thanks again, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Take care. Have a great day.